morning, Tartaria Australia and Autodidactic. We're here to do a bit of a special broadcast today. I think Cambell and I watched the latest EWARANNON 2 episodes last night, and we think it's definitely worth addressing right here and now and getting our live thoughts. We haven't talked about it yet, so we're going to do that live right now, because I think, Cambell, it's going to have a bit of a ricocheting impact on the community across the world, really. But obviously we are most focused on you guys and how it affects our Aussie community. So, hey, buddy, how you going?
I'm doing well. Oh, doing well. Yeah, interesting. I think a lot of people would have clicked on that video expecting to see, one sort of type of video and then got something completely different. And
yeah.
No doubt there's a few people wondering what's going on and what's happening, and has Ewar turned against us?
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. He came out, and we still don't know who Ewar is. I'm pretty sure it's not one person. There's too much good research going on. I think it's a group. I think it's disclosure. But yeah, he's suddenly like almost the biggest name, right? In this kind of research. He puts out a video and everyone has to go and watch it, and he gets like 500,000 views across, YouTube or whatever. And he's given us a lot of things to think about, a lot of good points, a lot of good topics, filled in a lot of gaps. And now he's come out and said, well, maybe some of that wasn't so correct.
Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting one. I think we can definitely agree that the EWARANNON series is sort of like our favorite TV show, like we're always hanging out for that next episode. And look, I mean, I think there's some really good points for us to go through here with sort of the vibe of what was presented, because as you said, it really was such an eye-opening series for everyone interested in this sort of like body of work, and definitely hugely influential in this topic. So as opposed to just leaving it undiscussed, let's fucking talk this through, because like I'm sure everyone's like, what the fuck was that about? But like my first instinct, Cambell, was great to ground the community, like to really like get everyone focused back in on some really viable research and having a look at, it's very easy, and I've done it, I know everyone does it, where you just like, you get this idea and then you generally hold that idea and then generally like apply it across everything you're seeing and looking at. So on that, it was really great reminder, I guess, for everyone. But I tell you what, the first thing was that struck me was we're in a really unique position here in Australia, because we don't have hundreds and thousands of backlog of history to plow through and get confused over and go through all those contradictions. Like, we're only looking at 250 years of sort of the history that we've been told about, and then alongside our Indigenous history. So for us, plowing through some of these points that he made in the last 2 episodes is really interesting as far as Tartaria in Australia goes. So what were your initial first thoughts when you watched it?
I mean, I was a little bit like taken aback, I guess, with the way he sort of did the angle he took, but I think it's very needed. I think it's very needed. I think we're in a topic where, I've been making videos on this for about 3.5 years, I guess. And when I got onto this topic, it was through New Earth, Sylvie at the New Earth channel, and she had a series, When the Survivors Wake Up, and it was like EWARANNON, but obviously a lot smaller. There weren't as many of us watching it. But you'd just sit there and wait for the next episode. Like, oh wow, that's amazing. And I think what's happened is this topic is so expansive. You can literally go in any direction you want. And it's also a topic that we can't verify a lot. We can't go out to these sites and get in there like architects can. We can't get to all these books and stuff that are, hidden away, and we're not privy to this information. So a lot of it is speculation. And I would have to agree with EWARANNON that a lot of that speculation has kind of been turned into or put out as fact or truth or something that has some kind of bearing on it, where really a lot of it's because me myself, I put out videos before on certain topics, and to me it's just like, oh, I found this and this, and that's something to have in your mind, and we'll see
let's
how it
explore.
evolves. And 2 weeks later, everyone's talking about it like it's true, and I'm like, what? No, guys, no. Oh, no, don't believe me. I don't know. And it's the thing, I don't know. Martin doesn't know. Kelly doesn't know. John Levi doesn't. We don't know. We're trying to work this out. So I think it's a really good wake-up call, because there's definitely some channels out there that I've seen that just are going down lines and they're saying, this is the truth. This is the truth. And of course, we know they show the evidence that supports their truth, but they won't show anything. Then they find something that dispels it, and they're like, oh, we'll just pretend that didn't come along. So I mean, and the thing is that I really like is you brought it all back to, this is all so that we don't look like idiots. We want to be able to put a proper argument forward. We want to have things that we can use as backup, as facts, as evidence. And when we're following videos that don't have any of that, they just look at this, I think it's that. That puts us squarely in the conspiracy theorist, a bit loony kind of thing. And we've seen what's happened with Earth.
My whole life's there.
Right. And it gives the normies, gives them their excuse to write us off and ignore us. And that's not what we want.
Well, it's interesting because my first response, I had a mixed response. I acknowledged that. I acknowledge also that the word Tartaria, and we've talked about this quite a lot, is that we use it now as a term for kind of like a movement versus us saying that the Tartaria culture that we could go back through history and identify is responsible for all of these buildings and all of these structures. But it has become the name of a movement now, a name of a debunking history movement and an exploration into, architecture and history as sort of the premise of the foundational premise. And that's to be acknowledged. And I think everyone who works within the Tartarian landscape acknowledges that. I don't think that's a big shock to anyone that, Tartaria in itself, we're not saying this is a culture that,
I agree. It seems to be put out there a lot, but I don't know that many people are saying every country was Tartar. I mean, we know Australia wasn't Tartaria. We know Africa was Barbaria. It wasn't Tartaria. It was Barbaria. We know the Americas. There's speculation. Some of it may have been a Tartarian society, but some of it wasn't. South America wasn't. So, and the maps, right? The maps only show Asia, Russia, all that kind of area.
Yeah.
So I don't know how accurate that is. I'm sure there's people out there that sort of are saying that, but I don't think it's the bulk of the community. I think most of us understand that it's just the name for a niche. It's just the name of our topic.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you want to find this topic, you type Tartaria in and you'll find it. So to me, that's what it is. And that's why I've kind of, I like to say, oh, well, but I've resigned to the fact that everyone knows the word Tartaria. And if we want to get people out there and looking for us, we need to use that word.
No, I mean, it's a good word. The word itself allows us to identify a body of thought, a body of exploration, a movement in that direction. The mixed energetics, I got mixed energetics watching it. And primarily I felt like his voice was different in these two episodes, in as much as he was so quick to dispel hundreds and hundreds of hours of research and basically all the evidence he's so far shown and weaved together in this amazing story, which, to the credit of that evidence, right or wrong, has led the way for a profound community of people across the world to start looking and exploring and seeing the world differently and opening their eyes up and engaging to the fact that what we've been told and what's in front of our eyes is opposing. So on that topic, his dismissal of all that with, as we went through the last two episodes, I didn't feel like what he brought to the table was anywhere near his usual evidenced work. And it felt very, very loose and very just grabbing it, as opposed to this magnificent narrative that's flowing through. And the other thing I found, you know, I had a mixed vibe with the fact that he actually named some of the sort of leading voices in this community.
Yeah, he put up 4 names.
Weird.
And he left me out. I mean,
I did notice
I'm pretty
that.
annoyed about that. Jesus, Ewarannon, what are you doing? Come on.
But he named them in a way, he's never named anyone before like that. And he named them in reference to saying, it was almost like he was blaming them. Like, I got my information from these people and here I am about to tell you it's all wrong. It felt really weird. Like, it felt like it was dishonoring to the community and dishonoring to, he named and blamed almost blamed and shamed, which I thought sucked. And it was a really weird vibration for me. Yeah.
I agree, and you know, Martin, you know, especially Martin, you know, he always says, you know, this isn't, I'm not telling you facts. We're you know, just sorting out ideas here. This, you know, and John as well. The other two I haven't. I've seen one of the girls. I think she did an ether video, and the guy who wrote the book, I actually looked him up and saw an interview, which was interesting. But yeah, I don't see that John or Martin are saying this is it. I pretty much think they're saying the opposite. Yeah. That, you know, they kind of make a point of saying this is just our views. We don't know. We're putting it out there. You know, work it out for yourself. You know, I obviously say that too. You know, be autodidactic, right? You've got to make your own mind up. So it was interesting, wasn't it? Because I kind of had this idea that Ewar, I mean, I thought he would have watched some of the videos, but I kind of figured that most of his information was coming from his own research rather than watching videos, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's why it was weird, like shaming and blaming.
It was a bit weird.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what's gone on is he's put out all this information and then he's seen this, you know, Liverpool cathedral and gone, oh crap, maybe I'm wrong. And I think he's kind of put that video out a bit rushed, trying to, you know, just put brakes on what he's done maybe and say, well, maybe we need to stop. And it's weird because the follow-up on cathedrals, and he said this cathedral took 74 years to build. 74? 72?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Now, you put that into context of the world's fairs. Some of them have 1,500 buildings going up in 3 years.
Yeah.
Australia.
Yeah.
Him saying that kind of dismissed everything he did previously, if you know what I mean. He's kind of like, oh, I don't know if it's true, but then it definitely took 72 years to build this cathedral. And if we think, well, that's the 19th or the 20th century, so previous to that, that probably would have taken longer. And we know they tell us some took hundreds of years. Well, that proves that what we're saying is right. That proves that Australia, you know, the story of Australia can't be true. It proves that the story of the world's fairs can't be true. It proves a lot of things are just lies.
Absolutely.
So it's very interesting. Maybe he just wanted to get a discussion going and getting us thinking. Who knows? Maybe it's, you know, we don't know who EWARANNON is. This is the other thing. We do have to accept this. We don't know who it is. We don't know, and it's definitely more than one person, but we don't know who the voice is. We don't know who the researchers are. We don't know who's putting it out. I mean, and the only place I find these videos is he's got a Telegram channel, and literally you go there and there's nothing on the channel, but every time he makes a new video, he just uploads it to that channel, and then people go there and spread it. So that's another thing we do have to think about. You know, we're in, well, we know, right? We're in a big spiritual war. We're trying to expose information that can change people's perception of who we are and where we are and what's going on. I mean, look at what's happening with, you know, the twits and Mr. Musk. Very interesting that happened the same day that, you know, Mr. T released his new social sharing website. You know, it's kind of, I don't know, it kind of makes me think it's the same thing. Like if Trump's site is all going to be to try and get truth out and let people free speak, and at the same time Musk, who we know the story of Elon, and he's now saying, no, this is going to be the truth. Is that to get Is that so they can control the truth through
Mm.
Twitter and everyone, you know, sort of sitting back? Everyone believes it's free speech, but they're really taking control back. Is that, you know, we have to ask these questions. Is that what's happening here? And I
Yeah, I
think
agree.
it's just got to come back. It's got to come back to ourselves. We have to be self-educated. We have to not believe what people say just because they say it. You know, and a big thing I say is you don't judge it. You just go, that's interesting, and then you get more information. You don't go, that's right or that's wrong, because we don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. I think because, like, obviously the using that cathedral example of his was one example, and then I think he showed 3 other photos of cathedrals going up, you know, in the last 100 years. And then that was it. It was like, here's my evidence, and everything else is sort of like dismissed and disproved. And it would be very easy for someone to watch that to think, oh, that's it. Like, this is like, that's what left me feeling weird about it. Like, he just sort of brought up one example and then 3 photos. And previously we've had hundreds of hours of evidence of this topic. And then he brought up one example, 3 images. And that was like, I'm so sorry. I've made a mistake. Like, let's talk about the living waters under these buildings here. It was just such a leap. It was a very unsatisfactory and very out of character explanation. Like, it didn't draw on all of the other evidence. That's why I found it really weak as a presentation from him, because like, it was just like, here it is. No, I'm not going to counteract the thousands of other examples going on around the world. Here it is, and I'm only going to deal with England now. And that's it, and everything else. And he kept saying, everyone's going to think we're stupid. Everyone's going to think we're stupid. And I'm just like, you've repeated that like 20 times so far, you know, like it was really weird. And I think as a result of that, I think there's been a big pushback now of people going, what the fuck? Someone got to you, you know, like, is someone, you know, like, because the direction was so unsatisfactorily turned in his presentation without any, like, with really small amount of evidence that, and nothing counteracting such a huge body of work. It was just like, this is out of character. And then he named and blamed, kind of like, he put the blame onto, you know, the 4 people he kind of said this is where I got it from, which is crazy because, you know, from where I stand, Martin and John, but Martin, I just love his brain. His mind is amazing, and it weaves together such extraordinary concepts. And you know, just to sort of put him up there and say, well, this is where I got it from and it's all wrong and here's why. Like, it just was like, hang on a minute, this doesn't feel right to me. So I think it does leave us with an interesting challenge. And I think this will be really fun for our community here, because I do like the concept of going from light to dark or dark to light and then light to clarity. I like that synopsis there. And I think it is a maturing of our community. It is a maturing process. And we're in a really unique disposition here in Australia. And it's like, this can really help us fine tune and refocus, because here in Australia, we only have 250 years of like white man's history to dive through. And it's going to be pretty easy for us to prove or disprove where EWARANNON's coming from now, because, you know, do we have the photographic construction evidence? Do we have the evidence that proves that these buildings were built by us in the last 200 years? And I think a good challenge would be, maybe, Cambell, if we just chose as a community and did these like community projects now, like if we actually chose a building like, say, Flinders Street Station behind me, or you know, the exhibition center or whatever. And as a community, we deep dived on that one building and we threw all of our research into that one building, and with all of our might as a community, to see if we can find construction evidence of that building, if we can find evidence that counteracts the idea that we didn't build it. And it's really interesting to twist the handle now, because we have been coming at it from, we're going to prove to you that we didn't build it. But now, like, let's prove that this was, like, let's try to debunk the fact that we did build it, you know, like. So I think it really does, it can, as a Tartarian consciousness here in Australia, I think we're in a really unique position now, of all the continents, of all the countries, You know, I always feel like history begins and ends in Australia. I really do. That's why I feel like our community is really leading edge on that level. We've got a really excellent premise to work in, a very small history. And I think we could take this EWARANNON 2 last episodes and really attempt to prove or debunk it, you know, from our like backyards here in Australia.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest prop was the time factor. You know, I found a cathedral. Look, we built it last century. It took 70 plus years to build it. 70 plus years. Just look at Adelaide in Australia. Adelaide is called the city of churches. There's like more than 20 cathedrals in Adelaide. Okay, at 70 years each or more, in a brand new colony. Like seriously. That statement says that Adelaide should have been this landscape of cathedrals going up for 100 years or more. That should have been the landscape, half-built cathedrals everywhere. And that would mean that everyone in Adelaide pretty much would be related to someone who worked on a cathedral. You know, so it was interesting. Yeah, right. So he kind of was very interesting. He kind of, like you said, he just kind of dismissed all this stuff and said, "Oh, look, it's debunked. Look, a book I found in a cathedral." So it's all. But then he goes on and says this 72 years, which kind of debunks what he said with the book. I'm like, doesn't make sense to me. Like what happened to your mind?
Exactly, because, you know, all the buildings, the ones we've researched in Australia, classically, the timeline around these buildings are like 1 to 2 years. You know, and these are as grand as a cathedral. You know, the exhibition centre is like 18 months, if that, not even that. And the known history is like 12 months and it was done. You know, in these buildings, like there's no construction photos. And if there is, the only construction photos we ever find is a bit of scaffolding at the top of the building, which is probably more like them deconstructing the building. And then it was done in as a brand new colony with no resources and for the most part, no power in like a 12-month period. And he's sitting there saying the cathedral took 70 plus years. Like hundreds and hundreds of skilled masonries and stone workers and, you know, all of this stuff to achieve that outcome, and a really strong industrial history that backs it up to allow that to happen, but not here in Australia. We don't have that story. We don't have that narrative. We've got these extraordinary buildings, these cities that just popped up basically in a couple of years all across Australia with no people and no resources and no roads, apparently, and bang, you've got these glorious, extraordinary structures, extraordinary stuff that, you know, we didn't even have the means to import the materials. So the fact that we're an island so far away, we have such a young history, we have the perfect premise and basis to keep debunking or supporting this consciousness of Tartaria from our perspective. And
I think it was awesome that you know, the cathedral he looked at was from England, because that's Australia, right? Australia, they tell us, was founded by England. So England had so much more tech and resources than us. That was an established, you know, they had people, they had factories, they had stone, they had the lot. We had nothing, right? So if it's taken them 70 years, it's taking us at least 100, at least.
And then,
right? And then the next bit we have is the destroyed buildings. What we're supposed to believe that they're taking 70 to 100 years to build a building, you know, that they build in 3, and then they knock it over. Like when it's 20 years old. Are you serious?
And then, of course, Campbell, we have the extensive underground nature of all of our cities, that these cities have been built from like way down the bottom with all the plumbing and the water and the power and the building, blah, 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 blah. Like I've walked the streets of Melbourne, as you guys know, and these buildings go down. And like, you know, like we did not have the facilities to just start down there somewhere and build ourselves up and plan out this whole city. And then in this quadded out, Melbourne's on such a grid line, like so perfectly with what we had available to us arriving in Australia from scratch with no resources. So like, you know, nothing about what EWARANNON presented in the last 2 episodes, like in any way convinced me that Tartaria was not a
We're on
correct.
the wrong path.
No
Yeah,
way.
and even when he showed that picture of the quarry, you know, he's like, here's the masons.
Yeah.
Here's this. Here's the quarry, and it was up for like 5 seconds, and I'm like trying to look at it, it's gone. I'm like, you know, that's not really evidence. And of course, he didn't talk about the mud flooded, like you said, the sunk buildings didn't get a mention. But what I found really interesting is he showed all that masonry work of the flowers and the birds and the animals in that cathedral, and he did not try and explain how they did it.
No.
That stuff, like they've carved the back of those leaves are carved.
Yeah. They're like full on 3D holistic
whatever they
carvings.
are, cast or whatever.
Yeah.
He just kind of went, oh, look, it's all nature. Look at all these things. Look how great it is. And then you see pictures of stonemasons with just big squares.
Yeah. You can't do that. You can't get stone and carve it out from behind the object and then and create these so fucking intricate designs, like, and so much of it with, like, he didn't explain the technology, whereas before all of that was sort of like evidenced in the sort of chain of thinking that everyone was going down, which is they had advanced technology. They had technology that supported this sort of craftsmanship. We can't do this by hand. It's like the sculptures with those really innate lace, like human sculptures that are just insane to look at, like a full human body sculpted out of one piece of stone. Like, we don't have that tech. And then even the paintings, if you go back to those beautiful medieval paintings, the extraordinary paintings that just profoundly no artist today can get near. And the pigment required is more advanced than our current printing pigments. Like, and we were told that they crushed them up with a fucking mortar and pestle.
Yeah, and the paint's thinner than what we can print.
Yeah.
Like microns. And we're talking like the Mona Lisa and like Da Vinci artwork. They're microns thick, and we're told they're layers of paint. And the whole lot together is microns. I mean, explain that. I mean, you know, the statues, you know, with the veils, with a hammer and chisel. You serious? Like, you don't even need to do, you know, a bad chip. You just need to move your chisel and exit, you know, in the wrong way, and you've destroyed that statue.
Yeah.
And the same with these leaves. They're like a centimeter thick.
Yeah.
You hit, you know, you're trying to carve that one wrong, you know, hit in the wrong direction, and you're starting again.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't make sense at all. You know, it just doesn't. Like, where's the explanation for that? So it was very interesting, wasn't it? You know, it's like you said, has someone got to him, or was it, you know, is he not who we think, you know, who we sort of imagined him to be? Because we need to ask these questions. We just do. And we just need to take real evidence. I mean, we should do exactly what he said, right? To get real evidence, but that doesn't mean that what he says is the real evidence. We just need to take it all and do more research, because it was very strange. It was like it's like he said one thing and then he went on to disprove everything he said.
Yeah, he did. And it was such a lame disproving. That's what was weird, because he's such, like, the whole series is in so super advanced in its narrative, and then the whole last 2 episodes, they were kind of lame in there. Like, if we had just watched those 2 episodes independent of anything else he'd ever put out, we'd all be like, oh, whereas everything else has just been fucking, that is such advanced narrative. Like, so it didn't sort of fit with what's come before. But, you know, let's talk about, like, so he's sort of like in one sentence almost dismissed the mud flood, just like, boom, mud flood. Nah, that was, sorry, everyone, like, wrong. But I walk through Melbourne, and I know that, like, people walk through our capital cities, and I am perpetually looking at buildings that are literally built into hills, which make no sense, which windows that are going down into the ground, getting smaller and smaller. And we don't have this I think we should definitely do some research on this, but the whole notions of living waters here in our capital cities, like, I don't walk around Melbourne seeing fountains or churches that are professing that living water aqueduct series. So his idea was that there was no mud flood in England. It was just all these aqueducts being buried, essentially, like, over time, that built up this sort of mud flooded perception. But I'm sorry, like the whole of Melbourne City has been built like this. Like, and we don't have what I would say would be a reason for it, like the burying, the perpetual burying, because we haven't got that timeline. We don't have that amount of time that over hundreds and hundreds of years, we perpetually bury these, you know, living water aqueducts or whatever the correct word is. Like, we literally have a whole city that's been built like disappearing into the foundations over and over again, like this, disappearing into their foundations. So, and I know that's true of Sydney and, you know, most of our capital cities, and like basically across the whole world mirrors that. It's not like England's an exception, but the whole world mirrors that. These mud flooded, and it may not have been a mud flood. That's just sort of where everyone's got to with their consciousness. But certainly these buildings have been at some point excavated out of the earth, and there's a reason for that. And that's across the world. Same with the architect, Canberra, like the architecture, like the style is synonymous across the whole world. Like this is, I was just today looking at it wasn't a cathedral. It was sort of like more like an exhibition center in Germany, exactly the same building almost in Japan, you know, like, so you take this architectural style and it's mimicked across. You could say in Australia, well, that makes sense because, you know, we were inherited immigrants from all over the world, but across the whole world, across the whole realm, like it does give to the concept that there was a united civilization of some description. How else would you explain it?
You're not going to build the buildings of your enemy. You know?
No, exactly.
The whole history we're given, humans hate each other. They spend their whole life trying to kill each other. Oh, we're so angry. But then, you know, we have these wars, and then we just go and emulate all the architecture from the people that we hate and try and kill. I mean, that's stupid. But because he kind of came out, didn't he? And he kind of said, well, there's this, you know, there's Baroque and there's Gothic and there's blah, blah, and they're clearly different things. Well, okay, fair enough. Why do we find all three in the same cities?
Yeah.
On every continent? You know, it's because we don't have Gothic cities, do we? We don't have Baroque cities. No. We don't have Greco-Roman cities. No. We have all of that mixed everywhere. Up in one city.
Yep, exactly.
So everywhere.
Exactly.
So to me, it's much more, it's a function thing. These buildings look like that because they've got a similar function.
Yep. That makes the most sense.
And then, you know, it just does.
And the same technology.
And the mud floods. We've got the photos from Russia. We've got photos of windows with glass in them under the ground.
Yeah.
Doors, wooden doors with the handles on them under the ground that have been excavated. So he just kind of just dismissed a lot with
so much,
no evidence.
And then he said,
we've got all this evidence.
Then he said, and then he was sort of like saying, you know, by summarizing it all as a united civilization, because we've, you know, drawn evidence in the buildings across the world being the same no matter what culture you're in. Well, you're dismissing your national pride, you're dismissing your national heritage. But the reality is, like, our buildings don't represent a nationality. Like, you know, well, I mean, obviously that's obvious in Australia. Like, we've got no nationality coming out in our buildings. Like, they look like they're from Europe. There's no nationality coming out across the whole realm in this way. Like, they are all the same style of building. So that claim that, you know, by saying this, you stupid people, you're dismissing the national heritage of your culture. It's like, well, actually, you know, like our very eyes, the same as flat Earth, tell us that there is a nationality in these buildings, which are all over the world. And that nationality, whatever it is, and we've just, you know, generally called it Tartaria, but whatever the true word is, like, it is obvious with our eyes that this is happening over and over again in contradictory cultures, you know, Asia and Europe and like all over and South America and all over the place, same style. So that argument he made about, you know, here I found this one cathedral in Liverpool, and like here this book says it built it, and here's a few photos that I found, like that I've just like, don't you think this is weird? Right, here's another thing that's weird, Campbell. Like this guy or this team have scoured the internet for ages to prove or to explore this idea of an alternative history. Do you not think they would have come across these photos before? Do you not think they're a little bit convenient that suddenly there's like construction photos of the bridge getting built or this cathedral getting built? You don't think that he would have already have found those pictures? Like if he had a big desire to go to this massive oldest cathedral, this big massive, which he says is a contender for one of the greatest cathedrals in the world, certainly in England, do you not think he would have like researched it a little bit before he made that trip and found such obvious construction photos? How would he have been as a researcher, which he clearly is, or his team clearly are, to suddenly go, oh, whoops, we did not realize that this building was constructed and here's all the evidence. Like, oh, silly us, we've only just found them. Fuck off. Like, there's no way. Like, you would have seen them straight away. Like, that's the first thing you look for, right? Construction photos of any building that you're looking at from a Tartarian lens.
Photos, I literally spent months at one stage just looking for construction photos, and I couldn't find hardly anything, you know, just the normal ones, you know, buildings without roofs and stuff. And so, yeah, exactly. It should be out there. And if they didn't find it, how come none of us found it? In 4+ years of research, thousands of people, no one's found any of these photos. No one living in Liverpool decided to research the Liverpool Cathedral. And I mean, come on, it's a bit weird. And we do see this. We do see that when we look for things, sometimes you get these anomalous pictures come out. And it's like, where was that hiding for the last 3 years? And so this is the thing. We just don't know, right? Like if we've got this one book of one cathedral, which is basically now an anomaly because we don't have any, I don't know of any other construction, you know, photos.
It is an anomaly. You're absolutely right.
All the factories and buildings. It's an anomaly.
Yep.
And so, this is the thing. We should have found all this out before, and then the whole time frame thing. I mean, you can imagine, and he kind of says, oh, you can still find people who remember this building going up. You should be able to walk down the street and find 10 people whose grandfather worked on that building.
Yeah.
If you're in Liverpool. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Liverpool's one of those places where people are born in Liverpool and they stay there most of their lives. Families stay there. And so this is, you know, it's kind of, oh, people remember it. This was the major thing going on for 70+ years in Liverpool. Everyone would have known about it. Everyone would have had a story about it. Everyone would have known someone who worked on it. Yep.
Agreed, Campbell.
We don't hear that.
If you Googled it, if you had Googled that cathedral, any one of us, anywhere in the world, like at any point, that should have been like the number one thing that came up. Like, we are so proud of this cathedral. Look at, it would have become the most evidented thing about Liverpool. You know, it would have just been the easiest thing to understand. If for him to go there not seeing this, not having that evidence, it's ridiculous. It makes no sense. It's like me after actually, you know, researching Flinders Street Station or the exhibition centre for the last 6 months. Suddenly I just Google it today, and then there's this little book that's popped up with all these construction pictures that just were never there before, and all these links to people who actually were there building it. And like, so, and it would be like, hang on a minute, like this is new, because I've literally been looking at this for 6 months and have found a few pictures of the roof, of the scaffolding on the rooftop here, you know, never from the foundations up. And then suddenly there's a little book there. Woo! Here is the cleared space. Here is all the, you know, it just feels so off. It feels so off the way he's processed this. Like, it's like he's been, that's why it does feel like something's forced him or infiltrated.
Yeah, it feels like there's something off.
Yep.
Like, because with all his other research, you would think that he would find that book
straight away,
and his whole show would be on researching that book.
straight away.
Are these photos real? Are these people real? Oh, I've got names. Let's check them out. Where do they live? Who are their relatives? Are they real? You know, try and verify. But he just kind of went, oh, it's a book, so it's all true. You
and
know?
he also went
research.
He didn't. And he also went. I know. Sorry, God.
Leave the books. It's written. You know.
And he also went from like, oh wow, like this. Here's the book of the construction of the cathedral. Therefore, it's all bullshit. Like, and that is such an uneducated presentation and narrative. Like, and by the way, here's all the people that like I got this information off from the first place. So they're to blame over here. Now I have the book of this cathedral. And I'm so sorry, I didn't happen to come across it before when I literally researched this cathedral and was on my way to go and see it because it was meant to be spectacular. So spectacular, in fact, that they've got all these ornate carvings all the way through it. It's like had my attention for ages. I'm actually making a trip to go and see it. But I didn't actually realize there's all this evidence of this being, and it's part of the national identity of Liverpool. Like, it doesn't make sense. It would have been taken him literally 1 minute to find that information if it had been there, if it's real. I mean, I'm not saying it's not real, but he would have found it ages ago.
And this is the thing. I mean, we don't know if that book's real, if the pictures are real or not, but the thing is, there was no research done. He didn't verify anything. He just looked at a book and said, oh, well, there's pictures, so clearly that's true. The dates they put on them, right? I mean, how often have we talked about dates and we've got the maps, right? We've got maps that have got the Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer from like 4,000 years ago on them, right? How old are those maps? You can ask the same question about these photos. You just can, because it happens all the time that we don't, people are out there researching, they can't find anything on a topic, and then suddenly, bang, something pops up. And everyone finds it at once. It's like, where did that come from? Really? Has that been released? Did they just change the date on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't know that. And this is the thing. He didn't ask any questions. He's such a good question asker and a researcher. And he goes into the nuances. Like he should have walked out. He kind of goes, oh, there's this 12-sided room and it's amazing. You've got to see it. Oh my God. Look at the leaves. Look at the animals. But not once does he ask the question, how the hell did they make those leaves?
Exactly. And he went and he deterred to the painting, which is just a weird little 5-second section where he's like, oh, but you've got this really dark idea of these constructions from the medieval, but hey, guess what, guys? They actually painted the inside and they've scrubbed off the painting. And I'm like, okay. Okay, fine. But why are you mentioning this? Like, what are you drawing out of that? Like, what, and it's sure he may be leading that thread through that they've actually they've erased and he did make a point saying the Industrial Revolution in England may have been a lot older than, the 1800s, and therefore they've actually spent a lot of time eradicating that, the technology they had to do things like paint these walls by scrubbing it out. But of course, we'd all be like, oh, yeah, of course they did that. It makes total sense. Like, what else? That's what they do. They eradicate history. But was that in any way, a strong enough thing to put in there at that point? It was just like,
weird.
And then, did you also notice that he brought up suddenly these new pictures of the construction of the Capitol and these buildings, but yet didn't mention the fact that when these buildings had that there's so many photos of their excavation when they were making renovations of these buildings being really, really underground. And he just said, look, here's the construction of this dome here. There was a photo of that. I think it was a Capitol building. But we've also seen evidence of how deep down and buried that building actually is. So he's drawn conclusions with the constructions of the top, but has dismissed all the previous conversation and narrative about the underground side of this, the buried side of this. And
I did a video on it on the White House a couple of months ago, and I showed all these photos where they renovated and just shows bulldozers inside. digging down, and there's buried walls inside the
Yeah.
White House.
Yeah.
And another thing is, they say that they put the second story on in 1927, like the second story of the White House. And in that video, I show pictures of the White House from the 1800s with 2 stories.
Yeah.
Like, so, you know, of course we're going to be told something, but you need to do a bit of research. So when you can get a photo and they're like, oh, look, this was put on in 1927, and you find a photo from 1890 and the second story is already there.
Yeah.
It's kind of evidence that they're talking crap, right?
Yeah.
You know, when he's saying, no, it was definitely built in this day, you know, and it was leveled and they built it in whenever. And then you see photos of them inside digging down and finding walls and buried stuff.
Yeah.
You know, these are questions, and he just kind of, kind of ignored it all and went, well, a book. So it's weird, and it was kind of weird that he's now sort of started a new series, right? The second one, the Cathedral. It's got another. It's LLG or something. It's got a different name.
Yeah.
So was that the last? You know, what was it? LHFE. Was that the last of those videos? Because he kind of built it up and then just went gunk.
Such a
and then
shame.
He's like, now let's talk cathedrals. It's
such a fucking shame. That series was just so fucking fun to explore. It's such a shame that he's just dismissed that whole body work. And
expecting more than that.
Oh yeah, I know. It's such a shame, and you know, like, and also he hasn't addressed. I mean, okay, so he's got caught on this cathedral in Liverpool, but he hasn't addressed the scale of these things, like the scale of all these buildings, the gigantic scale of everything. You know, why in 97, why would they build a cathedral to that scale? Like, what would be the purpose of it?
Especially if it took 70 years, doesn't that mean they could build a regular one in 35 years? I mean, but I noticed that because when he showed the cathedral, it's like we see everywhere. It's 5 times as big as all the other buildings. It's just this, and then it showed a picture of inside, and the ceilings are like 50 feet.
Yeah, I mean, the people like literally look this big. Yeah, they're tiny.
Now someone has to pay for that.
Yeah, what's the
someone
point?
has to pay for workers for 70 years.
Yeah,
you got to pay wages, give them materials, all this stuff. Now you could cut that in half if you made it or more if you made it a regular size, even if it was a big building, just not ridiculously big.
Yeah, I mean, why?
So that doesn't, and then the whole why, and the whole argument of that cathedral. It's, you know, the people who sort of question our research are the historians, right? The mainstream historians, and we know what mainstream historians are like. They're bookworms. They read books and then they repeat them back to you. How come no one's ever brought this up to us before in 4 or 5 years of this research being out there? How come no one has ever mentioned this one cathedral that apparently is evidence that it was built in the 20th century? Why? I don't get that.
Yeah, I don't get it either.
In England has a very, you know, probably one of the highest percentage of historians. They're all in Europe.
Absolutely.
They're not in Australia, that's for sure. We've got no history. Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it would be really interesting. I think we should seek an Australian historian and actually get them on the channel and see how their mind goes about like discussing this with us and debunking this with us. Like, how do they justify so many of our questions? It literally would be about, it would be very similar to talking about round earth and flat earth. Like, there's so much evidence. It would be very interesting to see how they actually, because in my head, most historians, particularly here in Australia, forget the rest of the world, particularly here in Australia, like, just haven't been presented with an alternative perception. And if they were presented with the alternative perspective, most of them would probably go, that's a fair point. That's an interesting point. I don't think that they would be completely like, get fucked, you fucking morons. Like, and I did not like that about his video. It felt subliminal to me. Like, the amount of times he actually said the word stupid, embarrassing, you know, idiots, like that, you know, that was really a weird presentation of energy there in saying that over and over and over again. You know, like, the fact is, and the reality is, and we all know this to be true, no one in the Tartarian community is stupid by any means. Like, you can't be stupid to get here. You actually have to have a brain that's alive, that's dynamic, that's flexible, that's can hold broad thinking and broad view, can quickly move between topics and wire and fire and connect dots, can be stimulated by all sorts of things and drop narratives. And like, your brains are so beautiful and so big with your capacity to hold and look at information. Like 90% of the population can't even do what people within this community can do. They can't hold that sort of concept. Their brains just shut down. Like, they can't do it. So for him, and he would know that, for him to constantly be saying over and over and over again, you know, you're going to be perceived as stupid, And the other thing, Campbell's like, do we actually give a fuck what historians or the mainstream actually think about what we have to say? Are we here trying to prove it to them? That was the other thing. I have no interest in proving any of this shit to anyone there. I want to talk to you guys. I want us to go through this. I'm not interested in fucking proving to my neighbor that situation or some lecturer down at Melbourne Uni. Who cares? Like, are you interested in doing that? Well, that's not why we're here.
It's a waste of time. You can't convince someone who's brainwashed. You can't do that. It's a complete waste of time. The way that we need to do it is just to keep building the evidence until it becomes self-evident. And then people go, oh, shit, we got that wrong. That's the only way we do it. Yeah, and he was a big thing about, oh, we need to win arguments. We need to win debates.
Who are you talking
Who's
to?
Who's debating this topic? Who's debating it? Yeah. They're debating flat Earth. I know that. You know, Dave Weiss is obviously out there doing a good job. But as far as people going on to other podcasts and trying to prove Tartaria, I don't know of any podcasts or interviews like that. I just don't know of them. Maybe they exist, maybe they don't. But I don't see it. I've done a lot of interviews, and they're just always just showing evidence. There's no argument. There's no, I'm right, you're wrong. Let's get you up against a historian. It doesn't exist.
It was
so
weird.
It's weird.
Yep, I agree. Like, it was
and
almost.
What else was weird is he kind of, the first one was, like a debunking, right? Like you're a bit silly, guys. You know, blah blah blah. And then the one on the cathedrals was kind of like a hook. You know, but there's the water, so it was kind of like, you're silly, but keep watching me. We're going in a different direction. Keep watching, which was a bit, and we're not trying to, you know, we don't know. We're not saying he's a liar and he's a scam. We don't know. But this is how we need to approach every topic. We just need to question it. We need to run it through our filters. We need to go, does that even make sense? And we need to, you know, obviously get to a point of, we should all be not believing information that this is presented to us. We should always be questioning it.
Yeah.
But the main thing about Ewar is it's definitely, I think it's happened that a lot of people kind of were looking at him as, you know, the source of truth.
Yeah, well, it's sad.
And we may need to reassess that, right?
It's like we've lost our favorite show. It's sad. It's like, you know, like it is. It's like, honestly, like if the community was going to take a hit from any presentation, it was definitely, it's like Martin coming out and said, actually, guys, I fucked up. Everything I've said for the last 10 years, I mean, it's just bullshit. I've learnt the errors of my ways. I've had a good conversation with a few mainstream historians, and they have showed me the errors of my ways. Here's my confession. Here's my apology. And I'm so sorry. You're all stupid. I'm stupid. Here's who to blame. And like, that would never fucking happen. Like, Martin would never do something like that in a million years, because the thing about this community, and there is something very like true here, is that this switchover of consciousness has a lot to do with the New Earth presentation. It has a lot to do with the beginning of the New Earth, and like the breaking down of the old Earth and the breaking down of the old programming. So like, I have no interest, Campbell, in proving Tartaria to the old world. What I'm interested in is exploring Tartaria with the New Earth community. I want to see how it filters through my future presentation, how it filters through our conversations with our Indigenous brothers and sisters, and filtered through our community. And because there's one thing that is absolutely true, right? You would testify to this. When we talk on these topics, whatever part of these topics we're on, but when we talk, I feel fucking great. My energy's high, my joy's there, my happiness is there, my like my imagination, my mind is whirring and firing. I'm asking questions. I'm not taking anything for granted. I'm exploring, I'm expressing. Like energetically, this community's energy is fucking high. And we're brothers and sisters in that height of our frequency. And up until the last two series, in EWARANNON was right there as well. It was like a full-on celebration of another group, a body, a brother in arms doing, you know, in the same vibe. And now his vibe is like way low.
Yeah.
And he left everyone way low. And he just left everyone in a way low vibe.
Yeah, I just heard his voice from like one of the other ones, and he was definitely a lot more forceful, is that the right word? But he was had a lot more conviction.
Yeah.
In his previous videos, he was like, yeah, and this and that, and in this latest one, he was kind of like a bit quieter. He wasn't not as much convinced. Oh, well, I found this, and and we need to win debates, and
stupid.
And it's like, yeah, it's just weird. Like, where's he getting that? Because if he's following Martin and John, hello Martin and John, by the way, go and follow them, Martin Leakey, John Levi.
I don't talk enough about John, but I love him. Yeah.
Yeah, John's awesome, and John's the same. He's just putting out concepts. These people, and this is what we're all trying to do, is we just want people to think.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't want to tell you the truth. We don't know the truth. We don't want to tell you what to think. We just want you to think and work it out. And but because he named, you know, John and Martin are two of the biggest channels, so you would think, and he kind of alludes to, this is where I'm getting my information, but then the perspective he comes from, as far as we're looking stupid, we need to win debates, that's got nothing at all to do with our community. It's
not at all.
John doesn't do that. Martin doesn't do that.
No,
I don't know anyone who does that. So
what comes out in our community, Campbell,
isn't it?
Yeah, what comes out in our community really powerfully is beautiful minds with their personalities. Like, it's authentic energetics of individuals who are expressing themselves through their attitudes and their minds, and they're beautiful and authentic. Like, that to me is one of the highest qualities of this community. Like, you can't even get into this place without being in some way authentic to your personality, who you are. And so it's expressed that way, you know, and I do it. You all know I'm fucking swearing, and I'm like, I do my personality here, and you have your beautiful personality, and Martin has his, and John has his, and we're just human being individuals here exploring and expressing. And, you know, I have to tell you, honestly, when I listened to it for the first time, do you know what flooded through my mind? Was communism. I don't know why, but I got this real, like, you know, that whole phase with the Chinese where you denounce something, you're forced to denounce something, you're forced to confess something, you're forced to name someone, and you're forced to, like, you know, correct your thinking. Actually, when I watched it, Campbell, weirdly enough, whether it's just my imagination, that was the vibe that came to my mind. I saw him denouncing and then blaming, and then having to re-educate his rethinking process. And what came after that was weak. You know, it didn't have his personality, it didn't have his balls or guts or his joy or his high vibe. It was low, low, low. And everyone who's watched it's going to come out thinking that was low. Like, that felt low.
So we'll leave the links below to the two latest ones, so everyone go check them out. Even if you have seen it, I would say go and watch it again after, you know, hearing our perspective, and see, you know, leave us a comment. What do you think? You know, are we full of crap, or are you feeling the same kind of thing? Because it was just a big U-turn that was kind of veiled to make it look like it wasn't a U-turn. Wasn't it?
It really was.
And like you said, just weak, not backed up with much evidence at all. You know, just dismissing things that we have a ton of evidence for, just dismissing them, not even, you know, mentioning like Australia, you know, the west coast of America, which is kind of the same, 1850s. No, all that, and the World's Fair, especially the World's Fairs, right? I think it was St. Louis, 1,500 buildings in 3 years. The biggest one was 20 acres. 20 acres, one building. 3 years, but it takes them 70 plus years to build a cathedral.
And Campbell, and like the other piece of bullshit that we've got to call, and we have kind of said it, is that he's just suddenly gone, well, I can't deal with any other country but England. I'm only dealing with England. I'm only dealing with England. I'm debunking and dismissing that there was some like larger group responsible for all these similarities across the realm in a myriad of ways, not just the architecture, but the scale and the size of everything. And, the technology and the electricity and the fountains and the cathedrals. I'm just dismissing all that. And now I'm just dealing with England. And that's it. So he's really taken his broad perspective and shrunk it down to this tiny little country, and it's not going to do any more of a broader perspective. So I don't know. I feel like he's denounced.
It's weird. And the other thing is he doesn't have a channel anymore.
Yeah.
So he's not being harassed.
Yeah.
People aren't, he's not being, harassed by trolls. There's not people going, you're an idiot, you're an idiot. He's made all this decision either on his own or someone, has contacted him or someone close to him. This is not based on, public perception, right? Whereas you can imagine, some of us who make channels, trolls come in and they're like, oh.
Yeah.
And in the early days, I sort of went, oh, really? Is that true? And I sort of questioned myself. And so you can imagine that kind of stuff could make him think, oh shit, maybe I stuffed up, maybe I'll put out a thing. But he's not in that, in that space. No. He doesn't have a channel.
No.
He put up one video, got harassed by one channel, and he cut his channel.
Yeah.
So it's weird. It's weird to say, it's disappointing, but the thing is, as long as we're autodidactic, right? As long as we stay the course and we're here to find the truth, and we're not jumping on bandwagons, and we're not, on Tartarian or anything like this. As long as it's something that's from the heart, from the mind that is true, and we're looking at all the evidence and not dismissing stuff that doesn't match our narrative, and that we're kind of doing a better job than he is at the moment. He was doing really well, but on this last one, he's kind of really dropped the ball.
Yeah. But see, for him to drop the ball, it's got to be deliberate. Yeah, exactly. It's got to be deliberate.
He was the amount of work that went into those first three EWARANNONs. I mean, the first one that sort of got combined, I think there were three in there. That's a 5-hour presentation, and that is stacked with such good research. The whole thing, it doesn't stop. It's just like whoa. Yeah, to go from that amount of research and being that sort of focused on the details to what he's gone to is really strange.
And like, really strange. I totally agree. And like we don't I don't even feel like we even need to say this to our community, but no one here confesses to fucking knowing anything really. We're very clear on the fact that the more we don't know, the more we don't know, the more we know, the more we don't know. The more we uncover and understand, we understand how little we know. Like, if we could, none of us would be surprised if, coming out in the next couple of months, there was some extraordinary new evidence or theories or concepts that blew our minds, like took us in a totally different framework, like did completely get rid of, like, we don't know who Tartarians were, not really, like they could have been some hell beings who were torturing the realm, but the evidence of what is created in their wake, like this, the beauty and the high harmonics and all of that energetic matches an advanced and very beautiful and mature civilization. But we don't know that. Fucking hell, they could have all been monsters. We don't know. Like the point is, we know we don't know. Everyone here knows we don't know, and we're having fun trying to figure it out. But shit, man, at least we're having fun trying to figure it out, because that's like us above 90% of the population who would not even think about it or care about it or want to even know or question those things. So I just want to be clear to everyone who watches that from our perspective, you're all amazing, and like your minds are beautiful, and don't stop. Don't be disencouraged by like having EWARANNON, who has been a leader presentationist field, like do this U-turn. Like it doesn't make sense. There's a lot of holes in that last 2 series, and I really think we should start doing some community projects. Like, I think we should take on board. We should, what building? You tell you, like, at Christmas time, my channel got slammed because I did a 10-minute video out in Melbourne City at the jail that's in Melbourne City connected to RMIT University, and I got trolled hardcore. Like, someone put it on their channel, and then I got like 1,000, like I literally 100 plus disgusting comments, like ridiculing the fuck out of it. I would love our community to deep dive on the Melbourne jail in the CBD of Melbourne, because it's friggin' huge, and like, let's pull
Pentridge?
together.
Pentridge, is it? Pentridge jail?
No. It's like it's connected to. It's not a jail anymore. It's no longer a jail, but it's connected now to RMIT University, which is that really Camelot-looking Tartarian university. Blows your mind. It looks like fucking Harry Potter, like to the max. And and like, it would be really fun if we named building, and together we all just like pitched in and did as hardcore as a deep dive as our communities possible can possibly do, and whatever evidence searches like surfaces from 100 of our minds on one topic, like, we're going to find it. If there's truth to construction of that building, we're going to find it. And then if like 100 of us don't find it, and then in a month's time suddenly there's this like little book that comes out with all these, we're all going to be like, what the fuck, like, that was definitely not there. So I think so. Is there any building that would be that you think we could start on as a community? I mean, I'm up for the jail, but I can't.
There's a ton, but I mean, I was looking at the Jewish synagogue in Sydney the other day. That thing's ridiculous.
I haven't.
Massive thing. Yeah, check that out. Jewish synagogue in Sydney. But I mean, there's heaps. But I mean, I think probably the best to start with would be a cathedral. Right, because that's what we're sort of up against. We've got a bit of stuff we can put in there, like 72 years. But that's, to me, I mean, and we need to research and make sure that's correct as well. But if that's correct, that's really good evidence. That's really good evidence for us that the narrative they're giving us is crap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if that's true, and we can find even one cathedral that they say took 5 years or 10 years, well, we know it's bullshit, right? And then that'll lead us down the road. And of course, if we do that, and like Kel said, if something then pops up, like, I don't know, a book in the foyer saying this
or
is
new
how we built
photos or whatever,
new photos, anything, because this has happened before. This has happened before, where we've been looking for stuff, we've found stuff, we're like this, and then suddenly this anomalous picture or a couple of pictures with no background or anything, they just sort of pop up, and people are like, what's that?
Yeah.
And they just, so it's just, you know, the system or the simulation or whatever it is trying to keep us back in the system, right? It doesn't like us wandering out and asking questions that we shouldn't ask. But it reminded me of, do you remember, what's his name? Rogan.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan. He you know, he came out as flat Earth, right?
Yep.
And everyone's like, yeah, flat Earth, yeah, Joe Rogan. And then he had Neil deGrasse Hole on.
Oh, yep. Oh, really?
Was it Neil? Yeah, I think it was Neil. And literally during the show, he went, oh, okay, I was wrong. Yeah, clearly we're on the ball.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, seriously. Same thing. Now I've got new evidence from an expert. I was wrong.
No.
And that's why the flat earthers now really pay out on Joe, because he literally did that. And that's kind of what we've just seen, right? That's what this EWARANNON kind of thing is. It's like, got all this, spoke to an expert, sorry, I was wrong. He spoke to me for 5 minutes. And so now the last 2 years of research are just white. They're nothing, because expert, right?
And like, if we've got to think, Campbell, like, the threatening, see, Tartaria's been left pretty much uncensored, right? Like, we haven't been, I mean, your YouTube, we get, our numbers are censored. Mine hasn't moved for like ever, you know, yours doesn't move. Our numbers are censored, but we're not getting booted off like Facebook yet, a little bit. So like, but the flat earth conversation and the Tartarian conversation is ultimately the most threatening disclosure to everything that's out there right now. It even surpasses human trafficking and all of what we've seen with disclosure of COVID and blah, 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 because it literally proves that everything we've known about everything we've ever been taught about everything has been a lie. So, like, if they're going to start to get a bit stressed about the population waking up, it's going to be coming from this place, like from flat earth and Tartaria consciousness. So, yeah, I mean, does it surprise us that we would start to see like those leading names, like those public names starting to denounce or be somehow threatened and like try to like alter the narrative? Like, these are the most profound truths that are available to us right now, this line of thinking.
And we've been luckily, you know, we haven't been attacked that much, but I mean, you can bet your bottom dollar they know we're out here. They know who we are. I mean, we know we're all being shadow banned. You know, we're not, the stats that YouTube and that are giving us are not correct. They're not right. They're all skewed, where they're not showing our stuff around. So they know we're here and they're scared of us. And I guess they've had to find a way of how to infiltrate, right? Because how is the establishment going to say we're full of crap when we go, well, explain this photo where there's windows with glass in them under the ground. Explain that. Because they can't. So they can't come out and just, you know, with flat earth, they can get all their scientists and they can put all their equations and their stupid maths and that up. And for the majority of the population, they'll believe the expert, even if it's crap. They just blind them with bullshit, right? They can't really do that to us, you know, because we've got photos. You can't, no one's got a photo of the flat earth, but we got photos of mud flooders. We got photos of star frauds. So really the only way for them to get into us is to do something like, and again, I'm not saying this is what's happened. I don't know. It's all speculation.
It's all speculation.
But the way to do it would be to do that, wouldn't it? To get a superstar in there, to get everyone following you. This is the kind of expert of your field. And then through that person, you then start leading them down a different path. Which
and
is
denounce
what we
them
might be
all
seeing
as
in Twitter
stupid.
at the moment.
And denounce them all.
That's stupid.
Like, you know, what we've got, Cambell and I, is each other. So like so we will only know how to gauge like any infiltration into this community, any attempt to alter the narrative via our own selves, like our own conversations and what we stand for. So if Cambell suddenly like called me up and said, Matt, it's all bullshit, I'm out, I'd be like, what's happened, buddy? Like, you know, like it would be, we only have each other to gauge it off. And you know, like you're a notable voice in this field, Cambell. Like I'm just like the little wild child beside you, but you are a notable voice and you've got that body of work behind you for many years now. So, and same with Martin. Like if Martin came out like and made a U-turn, you know, we could pretty much say something's happened. Like this would not come from those beings, you know, like, so claiming our sovereignty through this process is like, it's very obvious to me who's fucking sovereign. The thing with EWARANNON is he never exposed himself. He never showed his face. He never did a podcast. He never did an interview. He never put himself out there. He was literally anonymous. Whereas all the other speakers, John, Martin, you, me, everyone else in the field, we're here. Here we are. You know, we're presenting ourselves, our face, our, you know who we are. Like EWARANNON never did that.
Exactly. So it's definitely something to think about. And you know, we're not doing this for money and fame, right? If we wanted money and fame, we would have picked a different topic. You know, so we're doing this because we believe it's, you know, we're trying to get to the truth, right? We're not, you know, trying to be something that we're not. We're not, you know, spreading. Exactly right, and that's, you know, you get harassed.
I'm going broke, buddy.
You can't get a job.
You know, now we're gonna make. I've made a T-shirt. We're gonna.
Yes, merch coming soon. So I mean, it's interesting that this is happening right at the point that we're ready to go. Me and Kel have been talking, and we're ready. We're about to really start to explode this and really push it and really start to get the message out to a much wider audience in a few different ways. And also, you know, like Mind Unveiled just hit 100K. Actually, they hit 100K, and within a week they got another 15. They're like 115 now. You know, John's pushing 200.
Yeah.
So the whole research is kind of at that point where it feels like it's about to go boom and sort of really, you know, I've done interviews with like the SGT reporter that and getting into different niches.
Yeah.
And it feels like it's about like we're right there. And then right at that time, this video comes out. It's pretty interesting too, isn't it?
Yep.
All this stuff's happening and it's just like put the brakes on.
Yeah, it could be it's a very discouraging video for the Tartarian movement. So like, fuck it. If it feels bad and it's discouraging, it probably is. And you're not meant to pay any attention to it, no matter who it comes from. You know, like if Cambell and I put out a video that discouraged you and made you feel like idiots and morons, and you would know something fucking had happened, and like it would be really obvious to you. Just saying, like it feels obvious to me on that level. So how about we propose to our community that we just, all of us, wherever you are in Australia, go and find your grandest cathedral. Go and find your grandest cathedral and go and fucking deep dive on it. And it'll be obvious, like which ones. There'll be a community here in Melbourne that choose. In fact, down the bottom of the links, we will put a link of the grandest cathedrals in each capital city and go and deep dive on it. And potentially next week, maybe we'll just have an open live session with our community as we all present our evidence to these buildings and start to use it sort of like a explorational shared project, because Cambell and I have been working on compiling all this information into a cool book. So why don't we just do that with everyone? Why don't we all put our information into this book and set it up so like we've got your pictures, we've got your evidence, you know, we can see it. And if we find a cathedral here in our cities that is evidenced, because now we're looking, guys, now we're literally looking hardcore for the construction images and the amount of years. And I can tell you here in Australia pretty consistently, you're looking at these grand cathedrals that have been built in like 1 year, 2 years, and massive epic buildings, you know, primarily usually before like electricity. So let's do a deep dive. Let's see, let's hold Tartaria Australia up to evidence exploration from this week forward. Hardcore.
Yeah, let's see if he's right, and
let's debunk ourselves.
Prove one way or the other. Let's debunk ourselves. Exactly right. That's the best way to go. And we're going to end up proving ourselves right.
Yep.
But I mean, this is I agree. We definitely need to get into it because it was just weird. Like the narrative he gave. I mean, maybe I don't know. I just don't know what to think about it. Is he trying to lie to us? Is he trying to get us revved up like, oh, F you, we're going to go harder now? I mean, we just don't know. But the main thing is it's just a name. We don't know who it is. We don't know what it is. And even if it was someone that we knew, why would we believe it just because it was coming from a certain person? And this is the thing. We've got all this evidence. We've just got to go, well, that's happened, you know, interesting. You know, we won't. If we were believing everything EWARANNON said, then, you know, we shouldn't have been, and we definitely shouldn't from now on. And with everyone, right? Everything with a grain of salt. But Australia's got so many cathedrals. And the fact that he put that 70-year time frame in there, like to me, that's the one that was the best drop of the whole thing. Because
that's the key.
That is evidence. If we prove that that's true, then we have proved beyond a doubt that they can't be built in, let's say, less than 50 years. That would be impossible, right? That then
especially here in Australia.
Everything then falls over.
Yeah.
Especially in Australia, west coast of United States, New Zealand, these types of places, the whole narrative falls over.
Yeah, agreed.
Completely. And then you bring World's Fairs into it and oh my God, right?
Well then, the challenge has been set. The gauntlet has been laid. We are going to debunk ourselves. See what comes up. So we'll leave some links underneath this video, guys, but thanks for joining us today. We just felt it was important to get up and discuss this one. You know, it's like there's only a few sort of key, you know, I guess elements in this movement of ours that we all sort of, you know, watch or like relate to, and definitely the EWARANNON series is one of those things. So we thought it important to come up and like give our initial thoughts about that and discussion. And I hope you've enjoyed it. I know that like I'm sure so many of us want to talk about this now, you know, want to have this dialogue and talk it out. So we hope that we've facilitated that during this live today. So woo, there you go, Campbell. Any last words?
Well, we'll leave the we've been really bad. We've been so busy, but we will leave the Tartaria Australia email below if you want to, you know, send us some evidence, anything you found. Yeah, Kelly has given me all the details. I'll be checking it, you know, a couple times a week as well. We're going to get onto it. We've just had a lot, you know, we've both had a lot going on in our personal lives, so it's kind of you know, we've had to put attention into different things, and we know there's, gosh, Cal, there's a Telegram group out there that we really need to talk to as well, because we do want to you know, set up something bigger. So we're doing our best. But we will leave the email underneath if you want to, you know, send us a message or evidence. And we'll do our best to get through it. And obviously, anyone out there who does want to help, let us know.
So, you smart motherfuckers, I stand here very proudly to be walking amongst you. I love our movement. I love our consciousness. I love you guys. And like, I don't care what anyone else says. I'm not interested in what anyone else says. I care about where we are as a community. And like, don't feel discouraged.
We're not trying to prove anyone wrong. We're not trying to go out there and go, you're wrong, I'm right. We're trying to make a better world, right? And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, man. New Earth energetics. Got to bust through that program, whatever it ends up being. We're on the right pathway. We're busting through the program into the new Earth. The old one has to die for the new one to form. All right, guys. Well, lots and lots and lots of fucking love. Have the best week ever, and we'll see you soon.
Well, stay awesome. See you guys.
Bye, guys.